We're pleased to have you. We're going to let everybody get on. You can stay on camera. We just ask that you stay muted until you have a question. Karin, we're not sharing quite yet.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, welcome everyone. On behalf of Support After Abortion, I want to welcome you to our final abortion healing webinar of 2022. We're thrilled to be with you 10 days until Christmas. My name is Lisa Rowe, and I have the privilege of serving as the CEO. And today I am going to be talking with you about healing and the journey. And Karin is going to be my sidekick. We're going to have a great conversation, and we're really thrilled that this is the space and place we get to end on today and for the year. So Karin, would you introduce yourself? And then while you're sharing your screen, well, maybe you want to share a little bit about the recap from last month, and then we'll get into our topic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karin Barbito, the Special Project Manager of Support After Abortion. I see so many familiar faces. Thanks so much for being here with us today. The recap, if you missed last month, we launched our Abortion Healing Provider Referral Directory. Ivy, if you can put in the chat the link to that, I really want you to take a look at it. It's super exciting. What that means, what this directory is a list of abortion healing providers, clinicians, support groups, and the type of healing that they offer, whether it's for men, women, family members, if they do it virtually or in person, religious, secular, all kinds of different options. And what that means is that you can receive referrals from others who can't provide the support that the client is looking for, and vice versa. It's a win-win-win. The client gets connected to the healing that they're asking for, and we have a one place to go to find out how we can get them connected. So now I'm going to share my screen. Is this the time?
Yes, please share your screen. And as Karin's getting that ready, I just want to kind of explain a little bit of the history as to why we felt that this topic was a great topic to end on for 2022. You know, notoriously, abortion healing from a clinical perspective, from a layperson's perspective, has kind of felt one way. You know, it's been, let's enter into a group setting, let's enter into a faith-based setting, and let's heal that abortion trauma right now in a weekend retreat, in a 12-week study. And the reality is that healing doesn't happen in a one and done. It doesn't have a destination, it has a journey. And so we've been asked time and again over the course of abortion, of Support After Abortion, you know, what is the process? How can I better serve my clients? They're coming back and they're saying they're still hurting, their marriage is broken, they're having trouble parenting. What's next for me? And so as we listen to your questions and as we continue to grow and help provide resources for the abortion healing movement, we felt like talking about the healing process as it pertains to abortion healing would be a great place for us to really end with, so that we can get curious as we enter into our healing groups for 2023. So Karin, as you prepare for these slides and get ready to share, I just think it's important that we all maintain an open mind. Most of us have had a one-way approach, and that's why you're coming to these meetings. There is nothing wrong with it. We're grateful that you're in this space, but we know that there are so many people that are not being served because we only have that one-way approach. So we hope that something touches your heart and mind today that might be able to help inspire you to continue to grow your healing ministry. So Karin, if you'll take it away.
Yeah, so what we've learned along the way is that a couple of different things, that healing is not linear, and the different stages of healing take different amounts of time, and they change over life circumstances, right? I'm not the same person I was when I had my abortion at the age of 18, and what I'm going through now is much different than it was back then. But this is what we've learned, is that the first stage in healing is awareness, right? We have to, we're either triggered or have to acknowledge that we suffered a trauma and that we're not the same person today as we were before that trauma happened. So under the awareness umbrella, we're triggered in some way. We share that experience with someone, whether it's a friend or you reach out to the after abortion hope line at Support After Abortion. And one of the very first things that we do in the healing process is to identify how we feel. How are you really doing today? Has this abortion impacted you? And so the next step is acceptance. That's when we acknowledge the pain, we reach out for help, as some people do in the awareness phase, and we commit to healing. That acceptance phase is us saying, okay, I know that I'm going to have to go through some really intense, potentially emotional pain, but I accept that there's no way that I can go back and change what's already happened, that I need to move through the grief process. I need to sort through my emotions, and I need to find closure. And that takes us to the change, and really where that connection from our intellectual knowledge that we've suffered trauma to our heartfelt place of finding closure is through the memorial service, where we bring dignity to that child's life. It can be celebrated in all different kinds of ways. We continue healing, as you just said, Lisa, that it's not a one and done. Healing is an ongoing process. There's always layers of the onion to peel back, and that hopefully we get to a place where there's been such a huge transformation, and it's that we want to share our healing with others, because we don't want them to suffer unnecessarily like I did, perhaps.
So good, Karin. And, as you look at this and we look at it through the lens of abortion healing, I'd like you to consider applying this to every other area of your life, of your client's life. We all, at some level, enter into denial about our circumstances. We have to normalize them to get through them. It's how resiliency is born. Oftentimes, if you're raised by a substance, addicted parent, you somehow have to become okay in order to survive in that environment with their substance abuse, whatever that might be, whether you minimize it, whether you clean up after it, whatever it is. And so sometimes our awareness of what is actual is very distorted. And so what we find with our clients is awareness is a huge part of the process. So many of our clients say, I had no idea that this was causing this, or that this was part of this experience. And so by allowing people to explore what their connections are and what they've normalized is a huge part of the process. And Karin, we've had so many of our own healing journeys together. Going into acceptance is sometimes really difficult. I mean, I see this a lot with victims of sexual abuse, with victims of trafficking, to say something like, oh my gosh, I am a victim of this. I had to put on the hat that I chose this lifestyle to survive it. And now I'm calling myself a victim. I'm not so sure I feel like I'm strong anymore. Like, I'm not so sure that I feel okay with myself. And so each one of these phases is different for everyone, but we have to go through each one of these phases. Karin, something that comes to mind as I think about awareness is it's painful. To bring that darkness up and actually acknowledge that things in your life weren't the way that you needed them to be can be really, really hard. So I think that this is a really good place for you to stop and understand that however you're leading your healing ministry, however you're leading your healing practices, are you leaving enough room for these different stages to take place? Are you asking for each one of these stages to take place on your own time? Or are you being individualized in the way that you care for your clients? Because not everybody can go through this one day at 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it's like 6 months, and then 6 weeks, and then 6 years. Everybody has their own experience. So I think this is a really great place for all of us to really gain an understanding of how healing takes place.
Yeah. And Lisa, if I could just add to that whole awareness thing, many of you have heard my testimony before. I found out I was pregnant on a Wednesday, had my abortion on Friday, was back in class on Monday, and really didn't think about it until I got married and wanted to have children. And I couldn't. That's when my awareness, I wasn't pro-life. I wasn't pro-choice. I didn't think of it as a baby or as tissue at the time. I wasn't a believer in Jesus when I had my abortion. But when I got married and I wanted kids and I couldn't, that was the slap in the face of awareness for me, because I had to really digest and understand the ramifications of my decision so many years previous. And it was very painful, very painful.
That's so good. And you're reminding me that so often, sometimes we have clients that come to us that the abortion wound is so big that they can't understand that there's other parts of it. And so as that unlayering, like we talk about, healing happens in layers or onions, the awareness continues to grow deeper and deeper and deeper. And so the idea that we go to this one Bible study, this one healing retreat, this one healing opportunity, we'd be remiss for our client's sake if we didn't understand that healing opportunity is going to unveil another healing opportunity and another, and to be able to help support that client on that journey is really important.
Yeah. And it's so important for us to meet them where they are, right? Janine, if I can quote Janine, she says, sometimes they have to start out at a particular place, maybe that's secular in nature, but they'll reconnect with their religion along the path because they're in a much different place. You know, I wish we had time to talk about our consumer research here because so many, a majority of women and men who are looking for help aren't in church. And it doesn't mean that they're not Christians. It just means that they're not going to church because I think one of our clients said, Lisa, that, you know, abortion is socially accepted, but nobody ever talks about it. Right. And so that shame just causes us to withdraw and isolate, right? And so I could fully understand why Christian people might not be going to church and might not want to start with a religious resource, right? But then, and I've had clients, there's testimonies that I have of people that didn't want to start there and then reconnected with their Catholic faith, which is how they were brought up. So it's really, I think it's really all about being open to trying new things, making it convenient for the clients to engage in healing with us, creating a safe place by honoring their requests and respecting them, right? And then God shows up, whether we talk about him or not. And he shows, I mean, it's so true. And transformation happens. I've never seen it fail.
So good. And, you know, we have a comment that, you know, it's the best kept secret inside of our chat feature right here. And I'd love to continue those conversations. So if you feel like you have a comment, please feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. But, you know, it's been my experience, Karin, as we work with individuals who have experienced abortion, abortion is one of just a very few human conditions that awareness is really difficult to get to because our culture creates a lot of chaos around this conversation. We don't have any of the ways in which suicide is discussed or gun control is discussed or divorce or poverty is discussed. Abortion falls behind the political conversation. And so therefore people who aren't emotionally connected to themselves, maybe emotionally intelligent and maybe not in that strength, they don't understand what the messages that they've received from the culture have really done to distort their awareness about how they truly feel about their experience. So it's often very, very foggy for that client to enter into that place. And they don't really understand sometimes, why am I doing this? And why am I doing that? And so to give them that space, right, Karin, to explore is so important, especially as it pertains to abortion.
And I just want to bring men into the conversation, Lisa, right now, because men have been really misunderstood. We believed one thing before our consumer research, that men were the biggest influence in the abortion decision. And what we found was the exact opposite. So men are also really struggling after abortion. And think about what society is saying to them. You have no say. It's not your body. It's not your choice, right? And so I just wanted to bring that up because I know that it's really important for us to bring men into the conversation, because for every woman that's had an abortion, there was a man that contributed to that pregnancy. Right.
And that awareness, like you're saying, is even harder to reach, because what we've heard from men is, if I find myself hurting afterwards and I can't find a resource, which is very unlikely to find, I then feel like my grief is invalid because nobody's providing services to me. So I must be wrong. So there again, the culture is fogging the real connection to ourselves and our feelings. And therefore the awareness then is skewed. And we have a lot of work to do in that area in our work.
Yeah, we do. I do. So I know that all of these are numbered. As I said earlier, it's not linear. Should we go on to the next slide, Lisa, and talk about how it really does happen? All right, come on. There we go. So these are some of the points from the previous slide: triggers, awareness, seek help, deeper healing, acceptance. And it looks like it's really linear, but it's not. And from the graphic on the bottom, which I love this graphic because it shows how you can go back and forth. And Lisa, what are some of the reasons why you could be triggered and get to a place of awareness, and then later on, maybe even get to seek help and then back to trigger again and starting that process all over again?
Yeah, so many of our stories are very unique, but we all have similar themes. And oftentimes things are buried under each other. And so I'm just thinking of a story right now, Karin, where a woman at 19 didn't understand truly what her abortion experience had really captured for her, what her emotional connection to it was. She had her abortion, she started using drugs again, and 2 years later, when faced with another unexpected pregnancy, and this time she chose life, it was the birth of her child that actually pushed her into recognizing the experience that she had prior with her abortion when she was not able to hold her child after giving birth.
Mhm.
And that story always touches me, Karin, because it wasn't until she had a living child that she truly understand, because abortion was so normalized in her world. Well, then after she started unpacking that, had 2 other children, she started connecting more dots to her story, her sexual abuse, her parents' separation, living in poverty, all sorts of things that she hadn't dealt with were messy and connected to all these experiences. But it took her son and having children to really begin to connect the journey. And so as she unlayered through her abortion healing experience, she actually realized that the sexual abuse was part of the reason she was so vulnerable to, risky sexual behavior, which landed her in unexpected pregnancies. And that is a common story, but there's so many other things. Like, we have so many people that have father wounds that get through this process, have, pushed the guys out of their life, are fighting with their male bosses and all of these things. And by going through this journey, they go, I'm really upset with my dad. He hasn't been here for me. Well, that opens a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's really good. And as I said earlier, for me, not having children and being at the age that I am, I'm grieving in a new way, because there's going to come a time if my mom doesn't outlive me, that I'm not going to be a priority for anyone, right? I have brothers and I have friends, but they all have their own priorities. And so I'm grieving that right now. I'm grieving that I don't have living children or grandchildren, potentially even great grandchildren to spend, the last part of my life with. And so, grieving, I don't know that it ever ends. I don't know that I know that healing never ends, but interestingly enough, when you get to a place of healing and wholeness, you can be sad and joyful at the same time. Right. I never experienced that before I went through abortion healing. I'm sad that my daughter's not with me, but I so look forward and I'm joyful to the day when I'm reunited with her, and so it's just, it's really hard to explain the transformation until you actually go through it. And Lisa, you could share a little bit about that when you came through abortion healing for somebody, for an abortion that impacted your life.
That's right. And more since then. It's interesting for me, Karin, that as I began to unlayer my own healing journey with loss and reproductive loss and the experiences of those in my life that either I contributed to or I was ambivalent to, more and more people shared their story with me. As I became curious about my journey, I feel like I was reflecting out to people their own, interest and curiosity. And so I think it's important when we heal out loud sometimes, Karin. That's really important. And to speak directly to your question, I didn't realize the significance of my ambivalence and maybe the level that my sister looked to me when she called me unexpectedly pregnant. I was in my own trauma. I hadn't been healed. I wasn't in my own healing journey. I didn't even know I needed healing at the time. And when she called me and kind of excited, and I was absolutely mortified and concerned for her because of the state of my life and her life and everything involved. And I now can look back because of this healing experience and understand that there was a lot there. There was a lot thing. I had been parentified as a child of dysfunction. She was looking to me as a parent to affirm her experience, and I couldn't do that for her emotionally. I didn't believe in myself, so there's no way I could believe in her. And these are how family patterns exist. And it wasn't until that healing experience with you, Karin, that I was able to acknowledge the pain that she could be feeling as a result of what I did. And for me to be able to experience that, to grieve that, and then really truly connect to it was something I didn't know I needed. And I'm very grateful for that experience. And I continue to pray that the way that I continue to heal will impact her life.
Yeah, that's so good, Lisa. We did have a couple of poll questions for you and the responses are coming in. Can I just pose a question and the participants can put it in the chat so we can talk about it later? One of the poll question was, how have you experienced grief in your life? How have you experienced grief in your life? And let's talk about what that journey was like for you. And the other one is, have you been able to identify the triggers that take you back in the grief cycle? And maybe we can talk about what those triggers are. It could be an anniversary date, it could be aging, end of life, whatever that might look like. And so if we could just put some comments in the chat feature so that we have great dialogue and conversation at the conclusion of this meeting, that would be really great.
It's a great question, Karin. Thank you. So
Well, that's the last of our slides. If there's anything else that you want to talk about on the healing process, or else we can go into remaining curious, one of my favorite things.
Yes. Well, let me kind of really just open that up for us. So if we can turn off we can stop sharing our screen. We do have that on our training platform, by the way, and we share it in most of our healing conversations at conferences. One of the things that I really appreciated coming into this space as a pregnancy center executive director, as a clinician, having worn all these hats, is the uniqueness of abortion healing as it compared to other things that I was watching people heal from in my own healing experience. And what we learned was that we have a very common approach to abortion healing, right, Karin? We have a very faith-based approach to abortion healing, and oftentimes it's in person. It's very guided by the facilitator. It's very peer-led in the process. And we always want to lead with saying there's nothing wrong with any of these programs, except they didn't offer an opportunity for other people that are outside of that scope to experience the healing that they were interested in. And so therefore, we were leaving a significant group of people without healing opportunities. And so some of the things as I was learning and growing and trying to understand better why it was like this, is what we've learned. The culture is not accepting of abortion healing. We have a huge, group of people who, if they admit that we need healing, then their position on abortion could be mitigated, and all of the things that some of you know and understand very well. But there's an issue with that, because then we don't have the capability to connect with people on their journey. And so, Karin, as you think about the clients that you've served, and you think about having a variety, having a understanding of the healing process that we just talked about, having an understanding of it's not one and done, having an understanding that we're all kind of all over the place, what have you learned and helped us grow at Support After Abortion to meet the needs of all people, not just a solo group?
Yeah, so we've learned a lot in a very short amount of time. When I was hired here, I was asked to do a couple of things to elevate the abortion healing program that we had at the pregnancy center that we were a part of, and to find out what other people are doing. And it's exactly what you described, Lisa. It was a small group. Typically held in April and October. I'm not really sure why those are the months. Help 5 to 6 people per group, 12 to 15 people a year. And that's what we were doing in our abortion healing program at the pregnancy center. And so I traveled around and started going to conferences and started listening to what the consumer really wanted. And one of the very first conferences that I went to was a pro-life women's conference. And back then it was very eclectic. They had organizations represented there that were atheists for life, secular pro-life. And, I had women come up to me and say, I've had an abortion and I'm really struggling afterwards, but I don't believe in God. What do you have for me? And at the time I had to say, we don't have anything for you. So we started to research that. And what we found typically were clinical books, but they were extremely large. They weren't really meant to be done in a support group kind of atmosphere. And they were just intense. And so with our consumer research, what was so overwhelmingly obvious to us by the responses was that, one of the ones that hits me the hardest is that only 16% of women, and I think 40% of men, want to lead with a religious resource to start off. Doesn't mean that they're not going to go there on subsequent healing journeys, but if only 16%, I got to say that again, man, if only 16% of the women that we interviewed and polled want to start with a religious message. And if 95% of the programs, about, that's our estimate, are religious in nature, then we have just failed them in a really big way. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mhm.
And, the reality is what we're learning mostly from men and women is that people aren't screaming, I need healing from my abortion experience.
Right.
Right? They're mostly saying, I'm having relationship difficulties. I feel depressed. I'm having trouble connecting with my living children. I can't seem to maintain a peaceful existence. Everything is a burden to me. And so oftentimes they come to us and it's not about the abortion initially. We know it's underneath all of it, but they're not aware of it yet. And so we learned early on, Karin, that it was important to offer some peripheral opportunities for healing. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. So, and that's a great point. So people come to us with relationship issues. People come to us feeling deceived. They've had a medication abortion and they're really angry because they feel like they were deceived, that they weren't told what the process was really going to be like. They just felt like they were lied to. And so we have the opportunity to listen to them and really evaluate whether or not abortion healing is the first place where they should start. So many people learn to cope with their abortion by using substances. So if we have somebody that comes to us that's an active alcoholic or drug addict, to start a support group with them is just not going to work because they're not going to be dependable and they're not going to be able to think clearly and process clearly. So we have the opportunity through conversation with the people that come to us to find out what really is the most urgent thing. If somebody's homeless, I don't know that being in a group, unless they're living in their car, is the best place to start. We got to get them in some place where they have housing. So sometimes we have to work through those presenting problems and before we can get to that abortion wound, just to get them stable and able to engage.
That's such a good segue into what we're really helping, these social service organizations understand. And for all of you listening, I feel like it is our task. Each one of us has the ability to enter into conversations with those in our community if they are serving homeless needs, if they're serving in a food kitchen, if they're serving in maybe a parenting program or a domestic violence shelter, where anger management, that they know that there should be a question on their intake form to evaluate for abortion, not because they're going to offer the abortion healing services, but perhaps after that first presenting problem is mitigated, that they would then know that there's other places for them to go, and that social service organization could refer them to you. And so we really encourage you to go to those network meetings, encourage them to ask these questions. Some of you are struggling to fill your group, and that's one of the best ways to network in your community with other like-minded individuals that are there to help other people.
And that's such a great point, Lisa. It really is. There's so many organizations out there that come across wounded people, and many of those wounded people could be suffering after an abortion and not even realize it. And unless we ask the question, then we have no idea.
Right.
And that raises another point for me, too, is that that abortion-minded client. I think we recognized a while ago, Lisa, that the conversation that we were having with them in our pregnancy center didn't go far enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just didn't go far enough. It's a little uncomfortable. Typically people say I'm fine because that's just a natural thing that we say when people ask us how we are. We don't really give it any thought. And so I just encourage you, there's all kinds of trainings out there on Bright Course and within CareNet and Heartbeat that has trainings on how to have that conversation with the abortion-minded client, to really get to the root causes of why they feel like that's the best decision for them. Because an abortion is a symptom of a much deeper problem.
That's so
much deeper issue.
So good, Karin. Yeah. And so as we think too about the other issues that our clients are coming with, Karin, I don't remember, was it like almost 50 groups in 2021 that we led, and they weren't all abortion healing. Can you talk a little bit about what other groups we ran and why we did those?
Yeah, we ran Unraveled Roots, which is a resource that Lisa, myself, and Melinda Means wrote. It talks about those root causes of unhealthy behavior. If you haven't done it as a staff and as a volunteer, I really encourage you to do it. I'll tell you, my life changed writing that book, because I wasn't even in touch with my own roots and what happened in my life as a young child that made me believe lies about myself that drove really unhealthy behavior and resulted in my own pregnancy and abortion. We did, oh gosh, you might have to help me remember, sexual trauma, miscarriage loss, codependency, super big one. And I heard today in a meeting that we're going to offer that again soon. I think we have a volunteer that's going to facilitate codependency. Listen, please don't take this in the wrong way, but I've never met anybody that's not codependent in some way, shape, or form. And I was a raging codependent. It wasn't until I worked through a codependency workbook that I ever was able to stop using drugs and alcohol. Because I wanted to hang on to the guy more than I wanted to let go of the addiction. And when somebody finally introduced that concept, I didn't even know what it was, into my life, it changed my life forever. So miscarriage, sexual trauma, codependency, unraveled roots, keys to hope and healing. What else, Lisa? We had some other facilitators that have written their own resource, like Wendy Giancola did Transforming Your Story. Jane Abate did Where Do Broken Hearts Go? And things like that. So we had a variety of different groups going at any time.
And what we learned is that we can't be all things to everyone. And so that is in our message here. But what we did learn is that we can't stop with an abortion healing group. We have to have resources that either we refer to or we connect to. Wherever it is, we need to make sure that we know that this healing journey exists and that getting them through that weekend retreat or that 12-week study or one day, opportunity for healing, or that women's encounter at your church or the men's encounter, wherever they're finding that relief initially, which is what our clients share, is that I finally got it out. I finally said something. And that's the first step. That's not the final step. And I think we have it wrong in a lot of ways. Our culture does anyways, that once we have that initial relief, we're healed or we are done with this part of the journey. And that's unrealistic. It's not true. That's just the opening of a lot more. And so we're actually doing a disservice to our clients if we don't have follow-up care. So if you are a model that offers the one day or the weekend, we highly encourage that you have subsequent opportunities where you meet weekly for a series of months. Or, if you are the 12-week Bible study opportunity, that maybe you start in a different place and don't start in the 12-week Bible study. And so we're just asking you, as you develop your plan for 2023, to get curious about what you might be able to add to consider this healing journey, not the one and done healing destination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, getting curious. We talk so often, Lisa, about checking our judgments and our stereotypes and leading with compassion. And I just think that when we can do that successfully and not make assumptions, check our judgment, lead with compassion, and not make assumptions, then we open the door to being curious in a way that's non-offensive and really helps that client realize for themselves how their abortion has impacted them and how it's changed their life.
That's good.
I love to ask questions like, I'm just wondering, or can you tell me a little more about that? Or, we're big fans of how and what questions, not why questions, because we're not therapists. Lisa is, so she can ask why questions, but for the most part, our facilitators aren't therapists. And so we ask how and what questions. And when we ask questions like that and give them an opportunity to reflect on it and talk about it and keep them talking about it, it's amazing to see how they can come to conclusions themselves.
So good. Awesome. Well, thank you, Karin. It is just about time for us to turn this presentation over to all of you. And Karin had asked a question, and I see some responses in the chat. While we're reviewing those responses, Kylie, I see you came on. Would you like to lead this part?
I have been sorting through the chat, and you're very observant. So I was sorting through the chat because there are some fantastic questions being messaged to me directly to bounce off of you. both you and Karen. So the first one is, what are some of the secondary issues that might be connected to abortion struggles, and how do they differ between men and women?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll start. You end, Karen. Is that okay?
Yep.
Right. So one of the main ones that I see is connected to sexual abuse. So at some level, most of the women that we connect with have experienced some sort of sexual abuse, sexual exploitation. Not all women, but it is a large part of the group of women we have served. Codependency is also a major part. And so what we attribute to that codependency is early childhood trauma, lots of dysfunction in the family of origin, whatever that is, where we lose identity, purpose, and value 3, 4, 5 years old, and we go looking for it in other people. And so if you can imagine, a young girl looking for that love, attention, acceptance in other people, she might find it in the opposite sex in middle school. So just, maybe. And he, in turn, also experienced that early trauma, struggling with the same thing, identity, value, validation. And he finds her because we attract our brokenness. And together they create this place where they give each other what they don't have to give. And our culture says we do that through sex. And so they find themselves in a sexually connected relationship. And so that's where we find ourselves in unexpected pregnancies with no tools to experience whatever, measures they need to endure and have the ability to make good decisions. And so that's often been our experience. My experience is early trauma, mostly sexual, and that loss of value and identity.
Yeah. And so I heard that question a little different, Kylie. I heard it as, so somebody's had an abortion and how has their life changed as a result? And what are the presenting problems when they come to us? And I'm going to say substance abuse, domestic violence, codependency, like Lisa said, it could be homelessness, loss of a job, or not being able to keep a job. I've heard Greg Mayo say most men come angry. I can remember Greg Hassick saying that a lot of the men come to them because they're in a sexual addiction after their abortion. So, I mean, it's a plethora of things that people can present with, right? Relationship, divorce, whatever it could be, that they're coming to you from, and what they think they're really struggling from. When I found out much after my abortion, when I had the opportunity to share my story, like at the last minute at a Luncheons for Life, where the speaker had canceled on the last minute, and I was asked to speak, and I told my story for the very first time. And it was in that telling it from the beginning to end where all the light bulbs went off, where I could see how this and this and this and this about my life after my abortion were directly related to that decision when I was 18.
I want to call some attention to Greg Mayo, who is a member of our team here at Support After Abortion. He added that for men, maternal attachment disorders could be a presenting issue. Lisa, do you want to speak to that at all to explain what that would look like?
Sure. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about here. We earlier on, we said that people aren't raising their hand saying abortion is my problem. And oftentimes, because of the distorted message in our culture, they're not aware that the abortion is the problem. They've tried to stuff it so far down because they were never validated in their experience. And so to connect it, it's too far away for them. What's in front of them is their financial difficulties. There's relationships, the anger that you're talking about. And so we have to be ready to meet their needs, like we talked about in that social service realm, because they're going to show up somewhere, but it's not likely going to be in the abortion healing room.
Other people are starting to mention some things that they've seen, including eating disorders as well. We have a pastor by the name of Pastor Lisa on the call, and she has mentioned that she'd like to understand the extent to which the abortion wound might be present in substance abuse recovery centers. Should they be looking more deeply in long-term care facilities like that?
I want to take that one, Lisa, can I? So, as most of you know, I became an alcoholic and a drug addict, a crack cocaine addict, decades after I had my abortion. And I went to like 9 different rehabs over the course of 4 years. And not once in all of that time did any case manager or any intake ask me the question about pregnancies at all, and so that just baffles me. And that's why Lisa is conducting these webinars once a month for licensed clinicians to find out why it's so important to ask that question on your intake, whether you provide healing or not. I could have been directed to somebody. I didn't even know healing existed. But if somebody had asked the question and I said, yes, I had an abortion, and hopefully they would have said, well, how are you with that? I might have had the opportunity 20 years earlier to get connected to healing. So I don't know, that was 20 years ago. I don't know what it is like today, but I can tell you that what comes with alcoholism and addiction is an increase in promiscuity, that if you're having sex, there's a likelihood that you could get pregnant, and so it's just the lifestyle. So.
Thank you so much, Karin. Here's a really tough question. One of our attendees has asked, how do we share hope with our clients when we know that the journey for abortion healing is long and they are seeking hope and closure?
It's a great question. I think we have to be able to be real with them and be realistic. What they know to be healing or freedom is not what they're going to experience with us. And so it is very common for me to tell my groups or my clients that sometimes it gets harder before it gets easier, because we need to face these things. And then I do some psychological education, is to explain to them that these things have been stuffed in them, ruling their world. And until they get them out and we can look at them objectively, it's hard to understand how they're ruling our worlds. And so I don't ever try to lie or paint a picture that it's going to be pretty or better. What I do promise them is if they do the work, they are going to be more connected to themselves, which is going to allow them to be more connected to their freedom and their peace and who they really are. But we talk about how if you've been on this journey for 30 years, I don't want you to expect that in 30 seconds, you're going to feel better. Now, the reality is just getting them to talk, if they talk about it for the first time or have a couple sessions with you or a couple healing groups with you, they begin to feel the relief initially, because for the first time, they're allowing themselves to feel things and talk about them. But it's been my own personal experience that I don't want to paint a pretty picture that's not pretty in my healing experience, but I have appreciated the pain at walking with somebody. And that's what we try to help them understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that has come up in two different ways is somebody sharing that their deepest grief was telling their children about their abortion and having one of their children not understand. Fortunately, this child has now come to understand. But what tips, another person asked, what tips might you have in sharing your abortion with your children?
You want to take that, Karin, or do you want me to?
Well, I never had the opportunity to do that. I haven't parented children, so I would say that it needs to be age appropriate. Lisa, you might be able to speak to this better, being a parent of 5, and age appropriateness. And one of the things that you've told me, and I can share about sharing my abortion story with my mother, who it took me until just this year to share that with her, because I was always afraid of her going to her grave feeling like she was a bad mom, and why didn't she know, and why couldn't I come to her? And Lisa told me, I just so you know, I channel my inner Lisa all the time. It's like she speaks into my head and I remember what she says to me. She said, Karin, you don't have control over your mom's, how God affects and impacts your mom. You're denying her of her ability to grieve what happened to you and to go to God with that and have God work in her through that. And so I finally, I think I woke up from a bad dream and I went to my mom, and she got up and I said, Mom, I really have some things I want to talk to you about, and it's going to be hard for you to hear them, but I want you to know that I'm in a much better place. And we just had the conversation, and I was amazed at how my mom listened to me. And, we went our separate ways, and I asked her how she slept. The next morning I asked her how she slept, and she said, not very good, given our conversation. And I said, well, that's good, Mom. God's working with you in this situation. I never would have been able to do that before. and it's changed our relationship completely. My mom is willing to have hard conversations with me that she never would have had before. I actually said something to her the other day, and she came back to me later and she goes, Karin, I don't think that was a fair thing that you said to me. My mom has never said anything like that to me. You know what I mean? And just to have her feel safe enough to come to me and say, Karin, I don't agree with you on that, what you said. I don't agree with you. I don't think it was fair. So that's my 2 cents. How about you?
Yeah, and I would add that this is why we talk about healing as a journey, not a destination. You know, in the book, Keys to Hope and Healing, we talk about sharing your story, and I think key 5. And we are specific and distinct to say, this isn't about getting up on stage right away. It's not about going and sharing with every family member, getting on, you know, the news station in your community. It's about starting with the first safe person and practicing from there. And so we always have to evaluate our motives. Why are we sharing this? What is our outcome for our life? We can't control other people, and therein lies that codependency. And so we can't control other people's grief and loss or their misgivings or just you know, regard for what we feel or whatever. We cannot control those things. And so that's why it's so important for us to be connected with ourselves on our own healing journey and to really have pure motives, because as we share our experience, it isn't about what the other person thinks about it. It's about our own release and our own want to share with people. And so as we think about children, it's the same thing. All of our children are going to see abortion differently. All of our children are going to see everything differently. They're made unique. And so to be able to meet them where they are, you have to meet yourself where you are. And so that's why we constantly are talking about this journey, because a lot of us aren't ready to meet ourselves. And so to meet our children where they are, it's very difficult for us because we can't accept our own, you know, wherever we are, to accept them is very difficult. And so an exchange that is healthy in nature between a family member who's experienced abortion and a child, that a child doesn't respond well, is, man, that must be really hard for you, or that you wished I didn't have an abortion experience. It sounds like that's really hard for you, and just let it be and let them have their own process with it. And if it requires therapy or their own healing journey, we want to be open to that.
That was really good, Lisa.
There's a lot of really great conversations happening right now where people have shared their fears and the ways in which their fears were calmed when they were able to actually speak about their abortion. Next question that came up in our chat is to talk a little bit about breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma. And we are really lucky to have Priscilla Hurley, who has joined our conversation today. She is with the Abortion Survivors Network, and she survived an abortion. She survived an attempted abortion when she was 13 weeks in her mother's womb, and went on to have 2 abortions herself. Mm-hmm. So she's been chatting with Pastor Lisa and talking about her own attempt to break the cycle of intergenerational trauma. But Lisa and Karin, could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, and I'm going to pull away from this topic. And then Karin, if you could zoom in, I'm going to use poverty as an experience for us to relate to. We hear oftentimes the pattern that poverty carries from one generation to the other. And most of us can understand and put our mind around why poverty repeats itself, right? You know, if you are raised in a poverty mindset, you're constantly pinching pennies, you're unwilling to take risks with money, education isn't at the front and center. It's about, you know, surviving the next day. You don't ever learn the skills to adopt new understanding. And so then when you become pregnant and you have your own family, oftentimes the only thing that you have to reference is your own experience. So it's really hard to break a cycle that you don't know how to break. And so I want you to hear that as we think about abortion, because as you enter into this conversation with Karin, you know, think of the mom and dad who talk about abortion openly, and this is what they did, and it was the best thing, or they support it. And it's constantly the message that we hear in our home. Or if you get pregnant, this is what's going to happen. I'm never going to tolerate your pregnancy, and these sort of things. Well, then we start a narrative inside the family that until broken, it continues. Karin?
Yeah, I mean, we find clients like that all the time, where their parent has had an abortion or supported their abortion, actually maybe kind of pushed them towards abortion. And then later the child later finds out that their parent had had an abortion or were part of an abortion experience if it's a man. And we know that what we do in life is modeled for us by our parents, right? We either follow the model that we've been shown or we go the complete opposite, right? Like my dad grew up with an alcoholic father and an alcoholic brother. So instead of becoming an alcoholic himself, he became a perfectionist. Yeah, just as unhealthy, but on the flip side, right? And so growing up, I could never attain his standards, and I became a perfectionist myself. So, we become what we see and we become what we hear. And, especially if a parent has influenced an abortion decision, I would be really curious. I don't know that I'd ask the question, but I'd be really curious to ask them why is it that you want me to do this so strongly? Did you have an abortion or were you part of an abortion yourself? And see if a parent would own up to that, right? So, but it was very often, it's very, and it can go on for generations. I've known clients whose grandparents had abortions, parents had abortions, they had abortions, now their children are having abortions. Like you say, if we don't talk about the abortion wound that we've experienced, then it's not going to be interrupted. That cycle is not going to be interrupted, as you so eloquently said.
Yeah. And something that I think is also important for us to note is that sometimes it's not outward or we're not egregiously aware of it. Sometimes it's the unspoken things. It's the mom who has no self-esteem, who is constantly worried about what everybody thinks of the family. And she's always worried about what you look and how you eat and what you present. And so early on, you grab this need to have a great image. And at 19, if having a baby is going to affect that image, those messages have been, pounded into you from such an early age that when your pregnancy is not your own because it messes with the self-image thing. And so there's all sorts of ways that these narratives enter into us, and they're all based in trauma and fear and unbelief, and they connect to the different ways in which we grow into this world and the personas that we create to adapt to them. And so I think I saw you, Pastor Lisa, say that trauma transmits trauma. Amen, sister. Amen. It's perfectly said.
That was so good, Lisa, because I've had a client that has told me that before, that image was so important to her family that when she got pregnant, she did not want to bring shame to the family by becoming pregnant and not married. And we hear that all the time. That was really a great point.
Mm-hmm. We have some other really great statements coming out. What we don't talk out, we act out. When I reveal, I heal.
Amen.
Those are great. We have a question early on in the conversation. Are memorial services really necessary for people as part of their healing journey?
I say absolutely. And they don't have to look a certain way. There's no right or wrong way to do a memorial service. But if I can just for a moment, the purpose of a memorial service is to bring dignity to the life, however short-lived it was. And naming a baby, that brings dignity to that life, that brings identity to that life. I'm going to make an analogy. When my dad passed away, we had a memorial service for him. His kids and his grandkids and great grandkids came, and we reminisced about how my dad poured into our lives. I can remember I'm the youngest with two older brothers, and at about 5 years old, I used to hike the ball when the boys played football in our side yard, and I felt, that was just such a fond memory of him. And the grandkids talked about grandpa teaching them how to fish, because my dad was a big fisherman, and how to hold a fish, take a fish, hold it like with your thumb like this. For those fishermen out there, you know what I'm talking about. And we sang some songs and we had some prayers, and they presented my mom with the flag because my dad was a veteran, and we sang Amazing Grace, and it was over. But what we did in that moment is we brought value to my dad's life. We told everyone how much he poured into us and how much he meant to us, right? And we want to do the same thing with the children that we abort, because even though we didn't have that, I didn't have 85 years with my child alive, that child still matters to me. And I want to bring dignity to that life. The other reason that we think that the memorial service is so important is because that's where I really think that journey from intellect to heart takes place. And once something that you think becomes part of who you are, there's no going back. And I've seen men and women and couples participate in a memorial service. And one of the favorite things that we do, and check your local area to make sure that you can release balloons, is to write a message on a balloon with a Sharpie and let it go. And And I'll tell you, you could not get people to look away from that balloon. You can talk to them, they're not looking away. You can walk away, they're not moving. They're going to continue to look at that balloon until they can't see it anymore. And I remember this one couple who turned around and I said, oh my gosh, you guys look different. Like, what is going on? Said, we're finally at peace. Well, tell me, how did that peace happen for you? It was almost like we were handing our children off to Jesus, and we knew that they were in a good place and we didn't have to be worried about them anymore. Same thing can be done with flowers floating away in the water. You can light a candle and pray if you want. When I've done that before, some people don't like blowing the candle out because they feel like it's death all over again or final all over again. And that's not what it's supposed to signify. But you can do it any way you want. You can, buy yourself something to remind you of your children. I did that. I bought myself a ring that had Brave Love on the inside and had 2 gold rings, one for me and for my daughter. I wore it until I lost so much weight. It was too big for me anymore. You can, I've had people get tattoos with names of their children on it. You can write a letter to your child. You can plant a flower in their honor. I mean, there's all ways to do that. You can give a name, give them a name and create a certificate of life for them. And by the way, Ivy, if you can find that, again, we did that in our webinar earlier today. We created like 9 certificates of life that you can use in your support groups. They're all beautifully done by our graphic designer. And Ivy, if you can put that in the chat, that would be really helpful. So in our opinion, and Lisa, you can comment on it because that was the service that you attended that so profoundly impacted you. We think that it's really helps, that piece helps to bring closure.
Yeah. And to substantiate all of this with research, grief and loss has been researched for decades, right? This isn't new to the world of healing, except that what we've learned about reproductive loss is that we call it disenfranchised grief in our world. It's a grief that isn't ever acknowledged. And so as the healing process takes place, what Karin has defined so well is that they're given an opportunity to go through that grief and loss process that we've measured for decades, right? And so it's that bringing the meaning, bringing the value, having a goodbye opportunity, and being able to say that this was a baby, this is my baby, he or she is a part of me and will forever be a part of me and my journey moving forward. And I don't have to deny myself this experience, this loss any longer. And that's why we identified in the change process, because that creates change in our journey. That creates an opportunity for us to say, I now understand how this experience hurt me. I'm not going to encourage it again. I'm not going to choose it again. I see what this experience was for me, what I lost. I've allowed myself to grieve, and I'm going to allow myself to continue to grieve. And this is part of the process. So absolutely. But hear that it doesn't have to look like your traditional memorial service, some kind of opportunity to bring that life value and that person who's experienced the loss of that life to some place of recognition that they have been hurt by this loss and that they can connect with the loss.
Yeah. And Lisa, what you brought up just then was that asking ourselves why questions that we can never answer and going through the what if stage. What if I hadn't chosen this? What would my child's life have been like? How, what would have been like when she fell down and scraped her knee and I fixed the boo-boo for the first time? Like those what ifs is really important to go through to help you grieve your loss, but to get stuck there is not a good place to be. That's why facilitation is so important, so that we can continue to draw that person through their pain to get to the other side. But there's a definite place for what you just talked about, Lisa.
Yeah. And we believe that's why 50% of the abortions in our country are repeat, because of the unresolved grief and loss. And so we want to help resolve that grief and loss so that the pattern doesn't continue. Well, I'm looking at the time. Karin, I have really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I've really enjoyed hearing from all of you. Kylie, thank you for facilitating the questions. I really hope that each of you have a restful season here, Christmas season, and we are going to be hosting very similar webinars in 2023. The only difference is that they are going to be only at noon now. We're not going to shift the time back and forth. So you'll see the registration link in the chat. I encourage you to get that on your calendar for January so that you can be all revved up when you come back and you're not feeling thrown off. We're going to continue to bring these kind of opportunities to you where you can dialogue with like-minded individuals, but also hear a really pertinent message to help you elevate. And if I can leave you with one thing as you're moving into this year is, how can you better serve your community? What is one thing? We've tried to inspire that all year long. What is one thing that you heard today that you could bring back, that you could implement the beginning of the year, that could help you understand and help those in your community understand that this is a journey? The abortion experiences that people are living with in our community need a journey. They don't need a destination. They need opportunities to connect with people along their path. Karin, do you have any final words?
No, I'm just so grateful that you're all here. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you again next year.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.